The legend of Isla Perdida was a siren's call, a whisper in the salty air that drove men to madness and ships to their doom. It was a phantom island, erased from official charts, yet burned into the collective consciousness of sailors from Lisbon to Cadiz. They spoke of an island wreathed in perpetual fog, surrounded by treacherous currents, and haunted by the ghosts of those who dared to seek its secrets, secrets said to include a treasure beyond imagining, guarded by ancient, malevolent forces. For the Vargas brothers, Ricardo and Alejandro, Isla Perdida was more than just a legend, it was a birthright, a curse, and an obsession passed down through generations. Their grandfather, a celebrated cartographer named Mateo Vargas, had dedicated his life to finding the island, driven by rumors of a lost civilization and its untold riches. He disappeared at sea during his final expedition, leaving behind a legacy of unanswered questions and a burning desire in his grandsons to complete his quest. Ricardo, the elder brother, was the intellectual, the scholar. He inherited Mateo's meticulous mind and his passion for maps and ancient languages. From a young age, he devoured books, spending countless hours poring over nautical charts, deciphering cryptic texts, and piecing together the fragmented clues that his grandfather had left behind. He was convinced that Isla Perdida was real, that Mateo had been on the verge of discovering it when tragedy struck. He saw the island not just as a treasure trove, but as a validation of his grandfather's life's work, and by extension, a validation of his own. His quiet nature often masked a ferocious ambition, a hunger to prove his intellect and secure his place in history. He always felt the weight of expectation, the burden of living up to the legacy of Mateo Vargas, and Isla Perdida represented the ultimate opportunity to do so. Alejandro, the younger brother, was the man of action, the skilled sailor and navigator. He was everything Ricardo was not, impulsive, daring, and more comfortable on the deck of a ship than in a dusty library. He learned to read the sea, to anticipate its moods, and to navigate by the stars. He admired his grandfather's adventurous spirit, but he also saw the dangers of obsession. While Ricardo saw the island as a puzzle to be solved, Alejandro saw it as a challenge to be overcome, a test of his skills and his courage. He often felt overlooked, overshadowed by Ricardo's intellectual brilliance. He longed to prove himself, to earn the respect of his family and the admiration of his peers. Isla Perdida was his chance to step out of his brother's shadow and forge his own destiny. He often found himself chafing under Ricardo's meticulous planning, wanting to trust his gut and his instincts, but he knew that he needed his brother's knowledge to succeed. Their relationship was a tangled web of affection, competition, and simmering resentment. Ricardo, burdened by the weight of his grandfather's legacy, often saw Alejandro's recklessness as a threat to their mission. Alejandro, in turn, felt that Ricardo's cautious approach was holding them back, preventing them from seizing the opportunity that lay before them. They loved each other, but they also envied each other, each yearning for the qualities that the other possessed. Years bled into decades as Ricardo immersed himself in his research. He transformed their family home into a replica of Mateo's study, surrounding himself with maps, compasses, sextants, and stacks of ancient texts. He became fluent in forgotten languages, deciphering cryptic symbols and unraveling the secrets hidden within centuries-old documents. He was convinced that the key to Isla Perdida lay hidden within a seemingly innocuous family heirloom. Mateo's personal journal, a worn leather-bound book filled with his observations, sketches, and cryptic notes. Alejandro, meanwhile, dedicated himself to mastering the art of seafaring. He sailed the treacherous waters of the Atlantic, learning to navigate by the stars, to read the currents, and to weather the fiercest storms. He spent years working on various ships, from fishing trawlers to merchant vessels, honing his skills and building his reputation as a reliable and resourceful sailor. He knew that the sea was a fickle mistress, and only the most skilled and prepared could hope to survive its wrath. He saved every penny he earned, dreaming of the day when he could purchase his own ship and embark on the quest for Isla Perdida. Finally, after years of relentless effort, Ricardo made a breakthrough. He discovered a hidden code within Mateo's journal, a complex cipher that combined historical references, astronomical calculations, and geographical coordinates. He meticulously decoded the message, spending countless nights hunched over his desk, his eyes burning with fatigue and excitement. He realized that Mateo had indeed discovered the location of Isla Perdida, but he had hidden the information to protect it from falling into the wrong hands. He burst into Alejandro's room, his voice trembling with excitement. "Alejandro! I've done it! I've found it! I know where Isla Perdida is." He thrust the decoded map into his brother's hands, his eyes shining with triumph. Alejandro, initially skeptical, was stunned by the meticulousness of Ricardo's work. He studied the map, tracing the coordinates with his finger. He saw the countless hours of research that had gone into it, the dedication and the passion that had driven his brother forward. He knew that this was it, the moment they had both been waiting for. "All right, Ricardo," he said, his voice filled with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. "Let's do this. Let's find Isla Perdida." Alejandro used his savings to purchase a sturdy schooner, a vessel he christened the Espiritu, the Spirit. He meticulously prepared the ship for the long and arduous journey ahead, stocking it with supplies, navigational equipment, and everything they would need to survive in the harsh conditions they were likely to encounter. He knew that the journey to Isla Perdida would be fraught with danger, and he wanted to be prepared for anything. They set sail under a sky heavy with clouds, the wind filling the sails of the Espiritu. The journey was long and challenging, testing the brothers' skills and their endurance. They faced raging storms that threatened to capsize the ship, navigated through dense fog banks that obscured their vision, and battled treacherous currents that tried to drag them off course. They rationed their food and water, fought off exhaustion, and endured the constant threat of danger. As they approached the coordinates Ricardo had calculated, the fog grew thicker, enveloping the Espiritu in an eerie silence. The air grew heavy with the smell of sulfur, and the sea churned with an unnatural turbulence. Alejandro gripped the helm, his eyes scanning the horizon, searching for any sign of land. He felt a growing sense of unease, a feeling that they were being watched by something ancient and malevolent. Days turned into nights, and still, there was no sign of Isla Perdida. Ricardo began to doubt himself, wondering if he had made a mistake in his calculations. Alejandro, however, remained steadfast, trusting in his brother's research and his own instincts. Then, suddenly, through a break in the fog, a dark shape emerged, a jagged silhouette against the gray sky. Isla Perdida. The island was even more forbidding than the legends described. Towering black volcanic cliffs rose sheer from the sea, shrouded in mist. The coastline was jagged and unforgiving, with hidden reefs and treacherous rocks. The air was thick with the smell of decay, and the silence was broken only by the cries of seabirds and the crashing of waves. A sense of foreboding hung in the air, a feeling that they were not welcome, that they were trespassing on sacred ground. Alejandro felt a shiver run down his spine, a primal fear that he couldn't shake. They found a small cove to anchor the Espiritu, hidden from the open sea. As they rowed ashore, the black sand crunched beneath their boots, and the silence pressed in on them like a physical weight. The island's interior was a dense, impenetrable jungle, choked with strange vegetation and shrouded in perpetual twilight. The air was thick with the smell of rotting vegetation and the buzzing of insects. Strange, phosphorescent fungi grew on the trees, casting an eerie glow on the landscape. Ricardo, armed with his grandfather's journal, a compass, and a burning desire to uncover the island's secrets, led the way. Alejandro, his sword drawn, kept a watchful eye on their surroundings, his senses on high alert. As they ventured deeper into the jungle, they began to experience strange phenomena. The compass spun wildly, defying all sense of direction. The temperature fluctuated erratically, swinging from sweltering heat to bone-chilling cold. They heard whispers in the wind, voices that seemed to call their names, promising them power and knowledge. Alejandro started experiencing vivid hallucinations, seeing fleeting glimpses of shadowy figures moving through the trees. He tried to rationalize them, attributing them to fatigue and the oppressive atmosphere, but a part of him feared that the island was somehow playing tricks on his mind. Ricardo, fueled by adrenaline and the thrill of discovery, pressed onward, oblivious to the growing sense of unease. He was so focused on finding the treasure that he ignored the warning signs, dismissing them as mere superstition. Alejandro, however, felt a growing sense of dread. He knew that something was wrong, that they were treading on dangerous ground. He tried to convince Ricardo to turn back, but his brother refused to listen. They followed a series of cryptic clues from the journal, navigating through treacherous terrain, crossing hidden ravines, and scaling steep cliffs. The clues led them to a hidden valley, a place of unnatural beauty and unsettling silence. In the valley, they discovered the ruins of an ancient civilization, a civilization that had vanished without a trace. The ruins were overgrown with vegetation, but they could still make out the outlines of temples, palaces, and plazas. The architecture was unlike anything they had ever seen, a bizarre blend of geometric shapes and organic forms. The stones were covered in strange carvings, depicting bizarre creatures and unknown symbols. They felt a profound sense of awe, mixed with a deep unease. The place felt both sacred and profane, beautiful and terrifying. As they explored the ruins, they found evidence of a sophisticated culture, a people who possessed advanced knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, and engineering. They found intricate astronomical calendars, complex mathematical formulas inscribed on the walls, and evidence of advanced engineering techniques. But they also found evidence of a dark side, of ritualistic sacrifices and macabre practices. They discovered altars stained with blood, chambers filled with human bones, and carvings depicting scenes of torture and human sacrifice. Ricardo, initially fascinated by the civilization's achievements, became increasingly disturbed by the evidence of its brutality. He started to question the wisdom of disturbing this place, wondering if some things were better left buried. In the center of the valley, they discovered a massive pyramid, its peak shrouded in mist. The pyramid was made of black obsidian and radiated an intense energy. It pulsed with a faint, ethereal light, and the air around it seemed to shimmer. Ricardo was convinced that the treasure was hidden inside. Ignoring Alejandro's desperate warnings, Ricardo began to climb the pyramid, his eyes fixed on the summit. He felt an irresistible pull, a force that compelled him to keep climbing, no matter the cost. Alejandro hesitated, feeling a growing sense of doom. He knew that something terrible was waiting for them at the top. But he couldn't let his brother go alone. He followed Ricardo, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword, his heart pounding in his chest. As they climbed higher, the air grew thinner, and the temperature dropped dramatically. The whispers in the wind grew louder, more insistent. They felt like they were being watched, judged by unseen eyes. The hallucinations grew stronger, more vivid, more disturbing. Alejandro saw faces in the stones, heard voices calling his name, and felt the presence of something evil lurking just out of sight. When they reached the summit, they found a small chamber, carved into the obsidian. The chamber was filled with an oppressive darkness, and the air was thick with the smell of blood and decay. Inside the chamber, they found a stone altar, covered in dried blood. And on the altar, they found the treasure. It wasn't gold or jewels, as they had expected. It was a single object, a crystal skull, pulsating with an eerie light. The skull was intricately carved and seemed to possess a life of its own. Its eyes glowed with an unsettling intelligence, and its surface shimmered with a rainbow of colors. As Ricardo reached out to touch it, a voice echoed in his mind, a voice that was both seductive and terrifying. The voice promised him power beyond imagining, knowledge beyond comprehension, and immortality beyond death. It whispered of ancient secrets and forgotten gods, of cosmic forces and the ultimate destiny of mankind. Ricardo was mesmerized by the skull, drawn in by its hypnotic power. He reached out and grasped it, ignoring Alejandro's desperate pleas. As soon as Ricardo touched the skull, a surge of energy coursed through his body. His eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and his face twisted in a grotesque grin. He began to speak in a language that Alejandro had never heard before, a guttural tongue that seemed to vibrate the very air around them. He felt his mind expanding, his consciousness merging with something ancient and powerful. He understood the secrets of the universe, the mysteries of life and death, the true nature of reality. But he also felt a darkness creeping into his soul, a corruption that threatened to consume him. Alejandro realized that his brother was possessed, that the skull had unleashed an ancient evil. He drew his sword, determined to stop Ricardo, even if it meant killing him. He felt a surge of anger and determination, a fierce protectiveness towards his brother. He would not let this evil thing destroy him. But Ricardo was too powerful. He unleashed a blast of energy that sent Alejandro flying backward, crashing into the stone wall. Alejandro lay on the ground, dazed and injured, his vision blurring. Ricardo, now fully possessed, declared himself the master of Isla Perdida, the ruler of a new empire. He vowed to unleash his power upon the world, to bring chaos and destruction to all who opposed him. He raised the crystal skull above his head, and the pyramid began to tremble. Alejandro knew that he had to stop Ricardo, but he was weak and injured. He looked around the chamber, searching for anything that could help him. He felt a flicker of hope, a desperate belief that he could still save his brother. His eyes fell upon a small inscription on the wall, hidden behind a patch of moss. He recognized the symbols as an ancient ward, a protection against evil spirits. He remembered seeing a similar inscription in one of Mateo's books. With a surge of adrenaline, Alejandro scrambled to his feet and began to trace the inscription with his finger. As he completed the ward, a wave of energy pulsed through the chamber, disrupting Ricardo's power. He felt the darkness receding, the evil spirit weakening. Ricardo screamed in agony as the evil spirit was forced out of his body. He collapsed to the ground, the crystal skull falling from his grasp. He was left weak and disoriented, his mind reeling from the experience. Alejandro lunged forward and grabbed the skull, determined to destroy it. But as he held it in his hands, he felt the same hypnotic power that had seduced Ricardo. He heard the same voice in his mind, promising him power, knowledge, and immortality. He saw visions of himself ruling the world, wielding unimaginable power, shaping the destiny of mankind. He hesitated, tempted by the skull's allure. He could use its power to achieve his own ambitions, to finally escape the shadow of his brother and his grandfather. He could become a legend in his own right. But he knew that it was a trap, that the skull would corrupt him, just as it had corrupted Ricardo. He saw the darkness in his brother's eyes, the madness that had taken hold of his soul. He knew that he couldn't let that happen to himself. With a final act of will, he smashed the skull against the stone altar, shattering it into a million pieces. He felt a surge of relief, a sense of liberation. The chamber shook violently as the skull was destroyed. The pyramid began to crumble, and the ground beneath them trembled. Alejandro knew that they had to escape. He helped Ricardo to his feet, and they stumbled out of the chamber and down the pyramid. As they reached the bottom, the pyramid collapsed in a cloud of dust and debris. They fled through the jungle, pursued by the wrath of Isla Perdida. The earth shook, the trees swayed, and the sky turned black. They barely made it back to the Espiritu before the island began to sink into the sea. As they ran, they were haunted by visions of the ancient civilization, their faces contorted in anger and despair. They could hear their cries echoing through the jungle, a chorus of sorrow and regret. As they sailed away from Isla Perdida, they watched as the island disappeared beneath the waves, swallowed by the ocean. They had escaped with their lives, but they had lost something more valuable, their innocence. The island had stripped them bare, exposing their deepest fears and desires. The experience had changed them both irrevocably. Ricardo was humbled by his brush with evil, realizing the dangers of unchecked ambition and the importance of humility. He understood that some knowledge was too dangerous to possess, some secrets were better left buried. Alejandro had finally proven his worth, saving his brother and the world from a terrible fate. He had discovered a strength within himself that he never knew he possessed. He learned that true courage was not about seeking glory, but about protecting those you love. They returned home, not with treasure, but with a newfound respect for each other and a deeper understanding of themselves. They had faced death together, and they had emerged stronger, more united. The rivalry and resentment that had once divided them were replaced by a bond of love and loyalty that could never be broken. They understood that their differences were their strengths, that they needed each other to survive. They never spoke of Isla Perdida again, but they knew that it would forever be etched in their memories, a reminder of the darkness that lurks within the human heart and the power of brotherhood to overcome any challenge. The cartographer's secret was safe once more, lost to the depths of the ocean, a warning to those who sought to uncover it. They kept Matteo's journal hidden away, a testament to the dangers of obsession and the importance of respecting the unknown. They continued their lives, forever changed by the island, always aware of the fragility of sanity and the enduring power of family. Ricardo dedicated himself to studying ancient languages and cultures, but he always approached his work with a sense of caution and humility. Alejandro became a respected sailor and navigator, using his skills to help others and to explore the world, but he never forgot the lessons he had learned on Isla Perdida. Years later, Alejandro found himself drawn back to the sea, an irresistible pull that echoed the siren song of Isla Perdida. He set sail on the Espiritu once more, not to seek treasure or adventure, but to honor the memory of his brother and his grandfather. He sailed to the approximate location of the lost island, but he did not attempt to find it. He simply stood on the deck of the ship, gazing out at the vast expanse of the ocean, and offered a silent prayer for the souls lost to the sea. He knew that Isla Perdida would remain forever a mystery, a secret hidden beneath the waves, a testament to the enduring power of legend and the enduring strength of the human spirit. And perhaps, that was as it should be.